London, 1888. The streets of Whitechapel are alive with whispers. The city is drenched in fog, the gas lamps flickering like dying stars. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows, he waits. A phantom with a blade. A monster no one can see. A nightmare that will never die. They call him Jack the Ripper. For 5 long months, terror grips the East End as one by one his victims are discovered. Throats slashed, bodies mutilated beyond recognition. Even the hardened police officers, men who have seen the darkest corners of London's underbelly, struggle to make sense of the carnage. This isn't just a string of murders. This is something far more sinister. He doesn't just kill, he plays with fear. He sends letters to the press, mocking the authorities, signing them with a name that will haunt history forever. Jack the Ripper. Who was he? Why did he kill? And how did he vanish without a trace? Over a century later, his case remains the greatest unsolved mystery of all time. Some believe he was an ordinary man, a doctor, a butcher, or even a member of the royal family. Others say he was something else entirely. A predator who walked among us. A shadow in the fog. A killer whose name we may never know. Tonight we return to the streets of Victorian London. We will walk through the dark alleys, hear the chilling testimonies, and examine the clues left behind. The victims. The suspects. The horrors that still haunt us today. But beware. Once you step into Jack the Ripper's London, you may never feel safe in the dark again. London's East End, a place where poverty, crime, and disease thrive. Whitechapel in 1888 is not the London of royalty and grand palaces. It is a different world, one of overcrowded slums, dark alleys, and desperation. Thousands live here, crammed into filthy lodging houses, their lives dictated by hunger and survival. Prostitution isn't just common, it's a necessity. Women walk the streets not by choice, but because there is no other way to earn enough for a warm bed and a meal. The streets are chaotic and dangerous. By day, costermongers push carts selling rotten vegetables and scraps of meat. By night, gangs, thieves, and drunks lurk in the shadows, waiting for easy prey. And then, there's something worse. Something lurking in the darkness that even the criminals fear. In late summer of 1888, the people of Whitechapel hear rumors, whispers, of a killer who targets women of the night. At first, it's dismissed as drunken gossip, but soon the bodies start appearing. First one, then another, and another. Each victim is murdered with precision, not just killed, but butchered, as if by someone with medical knowledge. The police try to reassure the public, but fear spreads like wildfire. Newspapers sensationalize the murders, fueling panic. The killer is given a name. Leather Apron. But soon a new name will replace it. A name that will haunt history forever. Because this is the hunting ground of Jack the Ripper. They call them the Canonical Five. The women whose deaths were so gruesome, so methodical, that investigators believe they were all the work of a single killer. Their names are often overshadowed by the monster who took their lives, but before they were victims, they were people. Women who lived, struggled, and fought to survive in the cruel streets of Whitechapel. Until one by one, they were taken. Marianne Polly Nichols, August 31, 1888. The night is cold, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke and damp stone. Polly Nichols, a 43-year-old woman, walks the streets of Whitechapel in search of a few pennies for a bed in a lodging house. She's been turned away, no money, no shelter, but she isn't worried. "I'll soon get my DOS money," she tells a friend. She disappears into the night. Her body is found just before dawn on Bucks Row. Her throat is slashed twice, nearly to the spine. Her body is cut open, but strangely, there's little blood at the scene. It's as if the killer knew exactly how to make the wounds without leaving a mess. Annie Chapman, September 8, 1888. 1 week later, another body is discovered. Annie Chapman, 47, is found in a backyard on Hanbury Street. Her throat is cut deeply, nearly decapitating her. But the true horror is what's been done to her body. Her abdomen is ripped open. Organs are missing. A doctor later states, the murderer must have had anatomical knowledge. The police are now convinced this is not just a madman, this is something far worse. Elizabeth Stride, September 30, 1888. 3 weeks later, 2 women are murdered on the same night. The first is Elizabeth Stride, a Swedish immigrant known as Long Liz. She's found on Berners Street, her throat slashed cleanly. But unlike the others, her body is untouched. Did the Ripper get interrupted? Was he moments away from another gruesome display when something spooked him? Because less than an hour later, he strikes again. Catherine Eddowes, September 3, 1888. Just 45 minutes after Elizabeth Stride's body is found, another corpse is discovered in Mitre Square. Catherine Eddowes, 46, is mutilated beyond recognition. Her face is carved, her organs removed, her kidney is missing. And on a nearby wall scrolled in chalk a chilling message. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. The police, fearing an anti-Semite riot, erase the message before it can be photographed. To this day, its meaning remains a mystery. Mary Jane Kelly, November 9, 1888. Unlike the others, Mary Jane Kelly isn't murdered in the streets, she's killed in her own bed. Her tiny lodging room on Dorset Street is where the Ripper commits his most brutal murder. She is unrecognizable. Her body is butchered beyond belief. Even seasoned police officers are physically sick at the sight. If the Ripper had been escalating his violence, then this was his grand finale. But then he vanishes. No one is ever caught. No one is ever tried. The killings stop as suddenly as they began. And the legend of Jack the Ripper is born. Whitechapel is in panic. The murders are escalating and the police are nowhere close to finding the killer. Each time they think they have a lead, another body appears, even more brutally mutilated than the last. The Metropolitan Police and City of London Police launch one of the largest manhunts in British history, questioning over 2,000 people and detaining more than 300 suspects. But there's a problem. This is 1888. There's no fingerprint analysis, no DNA testing, no surveillance cameras. Investigators are relying on eyewitness testimony, which is unreliable in the dimly lit streets of Whitechapel. They are chasing a ghost, a killer who plays with the police. Then the letters start arriving. First, there's the Dear Boss letter. September 25, 1888. A letter arrives at the Central News Agency, signed in red ink with a name that would become infamous. Jack the Ripper. I am down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled. The letter mocks the police, promising more murders. It's sent to the press, fueling the growing hysteria. Then there's the Saucy Jack postcard, arriving just days later, taunting the authorities with references to the double event, the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. But the most disturbing of all, the From Hell letter. October 16, 1888, a small parcel is delivered to George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Inside is a kidney, along with a letter written in a deranged scrawl. I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. I fried and ate the other piece. The city erupts in fear. Is the Ripper writing these letters, or is it a sick hoax? No one knows for sure. But the murders continue. A flawed investigation. The police are divided. The Metropolitan Police handle Whitechapel, while the City of London Police oversee Mitre Square. They don't share evidence. They don't work together. Meanwhile, the press is turning the Ripper into a legend, making the investigation even harder. Hundreds of letters flood Scotland Yard. False confessions, wild theories, and misleading tips. The only real clues? A bloody apron found in Goulston Street, possibly belonging to Catherine Eddowes. The mysterious chalk message. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. Witnesses who claim to have seen a man in dark clothing, but no one can describe his face. The police are desperate. They interrogate doctors, butchers, even aristocrats, but every suspect is released due to lack of evidence. And then the killings stop. What? Did he die? Did he flee? Or did he simply change his identity and start again somewhere else? The police never find out. Jack the Ripper vanishes into history, leaving behind a case that will never be solved. More than a century has passed, yet we still don't know his name. Was he a doctor, a butcher, a royal figure, or someone even more unexpected? Hundreds of names have been proposed, but among them a few stand out, suspects whose backgrounds, behavior, or proximity to the crimes make them frighteningly plausible. Montague John Duroit, the educated gentleman. A well-dressed, educated man, a barrister by trade and a teacher at a boarding school, hardly the image of a serial killer. But in December 1888, just weeks after the Ripper's final murder, Druitt's body is pulled from the River Thames. His pockets are filled with stones, an apparent suicide. The timing is suspicious. The murders stop abruptly after his death. A high-ranking detective even claims the Ripper was a doctor who drowned himself in the Thames. But there's no hard evidence connecting Druitt to the crimes. Did he take his own life because he was the Ripper, or was he just an unfortunate coincidence? Aaron Kosminski, the disturbed barber. A Polish-Jewish immigrant living in Whitechapel. He was known to have violent tendencies and suffered from paranoid delusions. In 1891, just 3 years after the murders, Kosminski was committed to an insane asylum. A police official later claimed they had their man but lacked evidence to convict him. In 2019, a controversial DNA analysis of a shawl supposedly found at one of the crime scenes pointed to Kosminski. But critics argue the evidence is contaminated and unreliable. Could Kosminski have been the face behind the legend, or was he just a tragic scapegoat? Prince Albert Victor, the royal conspiracy. A royal prince, second in line to the throne. Could he have been Jack the Ripper? Some theories claim Prince Albert Victor had secret affairs with Whitechapel women and contracted syphilis, which drove him insane. Others say he was part of a Freemason cover-up, orchestrated to silence women who knew too much. But there's a problem. The prince was supposedly nowhere near Whitechapel on the nights of the murders. The royal theory is thrilling, but highly unlikely. H. Holmes, America's first serial killer. Some believe Jack the Ripper left London and continued his crimes across the Atlantic. H. Holmes, the infamous American serial killer, was in operation around the same time. His methodical killings, surgical knowledge, and sadistic nature bear similarities to the Ripper. Could they have been the same person? The problem? There's no solid link between Holmes and London in 1888. Was Jack the Ripper a woman? A radical theory suggests that the Ripper was actually Jill the Ripper, a midwife or female abortionist who used her medical knowledge to kill. No one would suspect a woman. She could walk the streets without fear, covered in blood without raising suspicion. Could the most notorious serial killer in history have been hiding in plain sight, not as a monstrous man, but as a trusted woman? Truth, we may never know. Despite endless investigations, theories, and modern forensic analysis, Jack the Ripper's true identity remains a mystery. Perhaps he was an ordinary man blending back into society. Perhaps he fled Whitechapel, his urge to kill fading into the fog. Or perhaps he was never meant to be caught at all. A specter, a legend, a ghost in the night. More than 2,000 suspects. Over 300 interrogations. Yet not a single arrest. How did one of history's most brutal killers escape justice? The answer lies in three key failures, problems that plagued the investigation and allowed Jack the Ripper to vanish into history. 1. The limitations of 1888 forensics. In today's world, DNA, security cameras, and fingerprinting can expose a murderer within hours. But in 1888, these tools didn't exist. No fingerprinting. If the Ripper left bloody handprints, no one could match them. No crime scene preservation. Police officers trampled over evidence, unaware of contamination. No forensic profiling. They weren't trained to understand a serial killer's pattern. Instead of scientific evidence, detectives relied on eyewitness accounts. But in the fog-choked streets of Whitechapel, faces were often lost in shadow. 2. The police rivalry that killed the case. Two different police forces were investigating the murders, but they didn't work together. The Metropolitan Police controlled Whitechapel. The City of London Police controlled Mitre Square. Each department wanted the glory of solving the case, so instead of sharing clues, they kept secrets from each other. One infamous decision? The Goulston Street message, the chalk writing near the crime scene that may have been left by the killer. Before it could be photographed or analyzed, the Metropolitan Police ordered it erased, fearing riots. A potential clue wiped away forever. 3. The perfect hunting ground. Whitechapel was chaotic, overcrowded, and lawless, the perfect place to kill and disappear. And then he stopped. After the murder of Mary Jane Kelly in November 1888, the Ripper vanished. Over 130 years later, the legend still haunts us. Jack the Ripper isn't just a criminal case, he's an obsession. Hundreds of books, movies, documentaries, and conspiracy theories have been created in his name. Tourists still walk the alleys of Whitechapel, tracing his bloody path. Why? Perhaps because he represents our greatest fear, a monster with no face. A shadow that kills and disappears. Jack the Ripper's identity may never be known. And maybe that's why his name will never die.